In my earlier life as a high school English teacher, one of the things about the work that I loved most was reading and discussing works of literature with students. It's actually why I became an English teacher. I hate grammar, especially teaching it. I mostly taught 11th grade, and according to the Texas Education Agency, high school juniors get a lot of 19th and 20th century American writings in their English class. Writings that included a favorite of mine to teach, F. Scott Fitzgerald's The Great Gatsby. I loved exploring with students that period in American history known as the Roaring Twenties. Mining the rich themes in the book, I relished pushing at and challenging and arguing with them, challenging their ideas. This book is great for stimulating that kind of discussion. Personally, I've always taken a little too much pleasure in deconstructing my own assumptions of truth and slaughtering my sacred cows, and not just a little joy in encouraging others to do the same. You all know that. You may have noticed over the last 5 years that we've done some of that together. So the Great Gatsby unit was one of my absolute favorites. One day, I pushed a little too hard, and I was allowed to experience the world in a new way through a very difficult encounter. As it happened, we were having that day an hour-long talk on this question: what is the American dream? And that question really sparked a lot of debate. In fact, the sparks started flying. Students offered all kinds of opinions. It was wealth, it was freedom, it was happiness. But what is happiness? It was independence, but can someone be truly independent? It was making something of yourself, working hard to get whatever you want in life. But is it really only up to the individual? Are there other factors that give some an edge over others? And it went on and on like that until the bell rang. And then we were done for the day. No resolution, no settled answers, lots of great questions, asked mostly by the students, rich conversation that had most of them thinking in new ways. And I noticed that several kept the conversation going as they walked out of the door of my classroom. And so I was feeling at my best as a teacher. They're still talking about it after the bell rang, getting kids to think for themselves, ask hard questions about what they've always taken for granted, pushing them to push themselves beyond easy thinking and pat answers, doing all the good things a teacher hopes they'll do. There's some teachers here, and I know you know what I'm talking about. But as the classroom cleared, one young woman stayed seated on the front row. I'll call her Blanca. But be assured, I still remember the details of her face and her real name. Her head was down, and I called out, "Blanca, are you okay?" And as I moved in her direction, the child lifted her head and looked at me with wet cheeks, tears in her reddened eyes. "Blanca, what's the matter?" And she told me what was the matter. All this talk about the American dream doesn't mean nothing to me. I don't have an American dream. My mom and dad brought me here when I was a baby, but none of us have papers. My dad used to make good money painting houses, but now he can't find any work. We don't have any money. This was in 2009, after the financial collapse of 2008. And the housing market had dried up and builders weren't building. She went on. My mom says we might have to go back to Mexico, but I'm scared to go back to a place I don't know. I don't remember it there. This is the only home I know. There is no dream for me. I was stunned. This was a new encounter for me. This student entrusted me enough to share in the vulnerability and the desperation and the fear that she was experiencing. I knew these kinds of situations existed. But honestly, for the first time, I was being washed in a relationship and invited to share in the experience and in solidarity. I could see something I hadn't seen before because of this unexpected encounter that I actually didn't ask for. The Gospel of John tells us of a man whom Jesus encounters along his way, a person who, though he doesn't ask for any help, does not express a need or desire for anything from Jesus, receives an unrequested paste of spit and mud in his eyes. And then, of course, washes it out when he is told to do so, if for no other reason than he has mud in his eyes. The man experiences an imposition of sight. Something that, until then, and absolutely not the result of any fault or sin on the man's part, Jesus makes clear, to then has been a part of his life since he was born. And from that point, the story focuses largely on those around the man until the final sentences that we heard today. The actual event of the man gaining sight is so short in John's telling, only a few verses, that there's relatively small focus on the actual miracle. But the reality of what has changed because of the man's new condition reverberates wherever this now seeing person goes. Some people can't believe it's the same man. Is that really him? Some can't believe a miracle could really take place. How were your eyes opened? Some would discredit the healing because it didn't happen the right way. He did not observe the Sabbath. His own parents fear for their reputations and safety, and so they push their son out front to fend for himself. He is of age, ask him how this all happened. And the man who has received the gift of sight doesn't understand much of it. He tells only what he knows. He testifies authentically to the reality of what has happened. One thing I do know, the man says, though I was blind, now I see. In my own life, the story I shared today, maybe in yours, there's come from time to time some new insight or revelation or understanding that might be likened to a reversal of blindness or a healing, but also might better be described as an imposition of sight, a new responsibility and learning and adapting to what we didn't ask for. In my encounter with Blanca, I saw light for the first time, a glimpse into the reality of her life as a person without documented immigration. And I've never since been able to engage in a conversation about this country's immigration challenges, about borders or walls or ICE or dreamers as an abstract topic. I encountered Jesus and another person that day, and that encounter brought healing to me, but it also imposed a new burden of awareness, of responsibility for what I now better understand. I'm not sure if I've been more set free or compelled to understand differently, to walk in a different direction, to go a different way, and to testify. Since that time, 15 years or so ago, I've given witness over and over again to that encounter I had with my student. I hope she's doing okay. I've told others how Blanca allowed me to share in her pain and fear and longings. But when I'm doing it best, I just stick to the facts. I don't embellish or try to fill in the gaps that I still don't understand. I just keep telling the truth of what I now see and try to resist the urge to fill in the blanks, here is an astonishing thing. You do not know where he comes from, and yet he opened my eyes. I believe that God is still in the business of helping us to encounter and comprehend and be moved by what we did not or could not before. God makes it possible to experience the world in new ways and lays a burden on us to testify in word and in deed to all that we now see. In this new burden of healing, in this transformation of our senses, Jesus sends us to tell others about the new ways in which we are inhabiting and experiencing the world. And I will add that the years that I've shared with all of you have also been an encounter that has helped me to see and has also imposed upon me a new responsibility to testify. St. Paul writes to the Ephesians, "Live as children of light." This day, I pray we will consider what encounters in our lives have brought a gift of light and sight and insight, and consider how we might or how we must testify to the light in the world as we now perceive it. Amen.